there, it's Christie with the Chirp YouTube channel. I have a fascinating little message for you today about taking one step at a time when dealing with anything in your life, but since we're on the Chirp YouTube channel, especially for dealing with things in your child's life that you maybe wish were a little bit different. So I'm going to take you on a little journey back in time with me. A couple of months ago, I was driving past one of those leadership academy type high schools in my area, and on their little message board in front of the school, it said, "If you can't do what you want, do what you can." And at the time, I almost started to cry because this was a huge message for me at that point. Some backstory is that for my entire adult life, I have struggled with my health. I've had various different things wrong with me that I'm sure are not all that interesting to the people watching this channel, but the result is that I deal with fatigue that is unpredictable and pretty frustrating at times. I've narrowed down my professional life and my personal life to a point where I can function pretty well, but it means that a lot of the things that I really would love to do don't get done. And I am very careful constantly managing my fatigue level and my energy reserves so that at the end of the day I have enough energy left over for the person who matters the most to me, my husband. And if I didn't constantly have that back and forth sort of how much energy do I have left, how much time is left in the day, what do I have later this week, what I've already done this week, if I didn't constantly think about that, then I would never have enough energy left for my husband because he's home in the evening, and that is when I am the tiredest. So I have lots of great ideas in the business arena. I have lots of great ideas for my classroom. I have lots of people that I would love to spend more time with. But a lot of those things don't happen because there is a red line in my life, and the things that fall below the red line of importance don't happen. Even though it feels really stinky to me sometimes, this quote was a good reminder that life isn't about all the things that I can't do. From my perspective, life is about loving God and loving people. And what I do is one step at a time. And this is how everybody lives life. Anything that was super great in the world was done one step at a time. Just one. Nobody can do two steps at once. We all can only do one. My steps may be slightly shorter or slightly slower than your steps, but you still do one step at a time, just like I do. And all those people out there who seem to have limitless energy and no health problems and nothing that hangs them up at all in life, they still do things one step at a time. I find that encouraging. So, at the end of my life, I would like to look back and say that no matter what my hurdles were, I carried on doing what I believe that I was made to do, and at the end of every week or month or year, I walked a little bit farther down the road that I believe that I was made to travel. So thinking about that, I thought maybe there are some people who need to hear that today too, but maybe in a different context. Maybe you do have health stuff that stinks. Or maybe you're thinking about all of the things that you would love to incorporate into your family's life, into your child who has developmental disabilities. Maybe you're thinking, there's no way that I can do all of this, so I'm not going to do anything. Or maybe you're just frustrated because it's harder than you thought, or you're overwhelmed by how many options there are. That's all very reasonable because there are a huge number of options. There is so much information available on the internet, in books, in magazines, on TV, that it's very easy to become completely overwhelmed and stymied because you don't know where to start. If all you did was watch the videos on this one channel and try to put all of those recommendations into place, you'd still be completely underwater, and your family would feel like they were living in chaos because you're doing too many things at one time and not choosing a focus and going with that. So I don't know if you ever saw City Slickers with Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal goes into the country to kind of work through some of his garbage, and there's this wise old cowboy man, and Billy Crystal asks him kind of, what's the secret to life? And the guy says, it's one thing. And Billy Crystal says, yeah, what is that one thing? And the cowboy says, nope, it's one thing. The deal being that we decide what that one thing is, and then we pursue that with everything that we have. And that's what makes our life, it makes it focused and purposeful. And focused and purposeful are half the battle, as long as we're chasing the right thing. And that is up to you to decide. So I'd like to introduce you to the concept of Kaisen. This is not very well known in the West, but it's a management and productivity method that is used heavily in Japan, especially in car companies and electronics style companies. I'll put more information about that down below, some links that you can do research on that if you'd like to. But I read this book called One Step Can Change Your Life, The Kaisen Way by Robert Maurer, PhD. And the idea is that these car companies did one thing at a time. They changed one thing in their process of making cars. So maybe they realized their windshields were subpar, and so they figured out a way to make their windshields a little better. And then once their windshields were better, maybe they decided that the seats weren't fitting people's butts quite right. So they changed the seats. And slowly, one step at a time, their cars became better than any other cars in the world. And this did not happen with one major redesign. Like in the West, we usually love a makeover story. And this style of management, this style of life, is not a huge makeover. It's a constant tweak of the status quo so that there's always improvement, but all the improvements are very small and very slow. But just a tiny little change in the trajectory makes a huge difference after a while. So that's kind of what this little message is about today. And I have some steps to take you through that will help you decide what is that one thing I want to focus on with my child or a particular student right now, and how do I go through the process of focusing on that one thing. So I did put a link to this One Small Step Can Change Your Life book down in the info box. So take a peek down there and you'll find all sorts of good surprises. As far as your child or your classroom goes, here is a thought plan for working through how to put this one step at a time practice into use. First step, think about your life with your child or your day in your classroom and pick out the one thing that would make the biggest difference in your satisfaction level if it were changed or eliminated. So think, okay, I'm thinking about this. If you have your own child you're thinking of, there's this one thing that makes me crazy, or that disturbs the whole family, or that I can't even run errands because of this one area that's causing a problem. So think of that one thing. Got it? Okay. If you don't have it, consider the following areas where you might have concerns. Most families have a concern in one of these areas or more. But remember, you're just picking out the most meaningful thing. What would be the most meaningful if it were changed? Behavior. Are there particular behaviors that disturb your family or your classroom? Communication. If your child can't communicate his needs, wants, or thoughts, that might be your biggest one thing. Social skills. Does your child engage with you or with others in an appropriate way? Eating. Does your child have such restricted eating preferences that your whole family is thrown off by trying to cater to these very persnickety sort of needs in the eating realm. Sensory integration. Does your child not relate to the world, the sensory world, in a typical way? So certain things, I won't touch that. You can't put these socks on. I won't wear a hat when it's freezing cold because it touches me in a weird way, that kind of thing. Maybe that's at the top of your list. So once you've thought of your one thing, step number 2, choose a source that you trust and educate yourself on that one issue. So what you're doing here is you're narrowing your focus from a wide to a very small little pinprick. So you're going from, I want to learn everything I can about communication disorders. Instead of that, you're narrowing your focus to, my child can't tell me what he wants. How do I work on that? And that is your one thing. Now, you need to educate yourself from a source that you trust. If you have professionals in your life who are working with your child, that is a great place to start, because they're able to write up goals with you. They're able to give you recommendations on how you can work on those things. That's their job. So if you have an occupational therapist or a speech therapist, if you have a special educator in your child's life, those are great places to go and say, in our home, I want my child to be able to ask for what he wants. I want him to be able to pick a snack he likes. I want him to be able to request his favorite toy. Rather than pointing, rather than reaching, rather than crying, I want some sort of communication that is logical and effective. Can you help me work on that with my child? That's very exciting for us professionals, because we realize that the family sees a need, wants to change it, and is super eager to buy into whatever plan that we create together. And when a family is bought in is when we see the biggest progress in the child. So wahoo, they'll be excited. If you don't have a professional, that does not mean that you won't be able to figure this out by yourself. I do recommend that you try to find a professional if at all possible. There should be someone available through your local public school that you could make an appointment with and talk to. And I'll put a link in the info box to speech therapist websites where you can find, like the American Speech Language Hearing Association, ASHA, which I'm a member of because I have to be. And there's a link down below where you can find a professional in your area if you find that helpful. And I do recommend that because most of them know what they're doing. You do want to make sure that you have a rapport with the person and that they're really willing to work on what's important to you, because that's where we're going to be the most effective, is when it's a team effort. So after you figure out what the issue is, after you gather some ideas, then you need to choose an action plan. Now, gathering the ideas is, here's all the ways different professionals believe that you can work on helping your child request. For our family, I think the best choice is, I'm going to use my favorite here because I'm making this video. We're going to use a visual communication book because we believe that would be the most efficient and effective way to help our child communicate his wants, needs, and thoughts. Okay, so you made that decision. Don't do anything until you've created a logical plan, because otherwise you're just throwing things into the mix before you've really thought it through all the way, and it becomes confusing and it's not very effective. If you're working on helping your nonverbal child communicate more effectively, don't just randomly expect him to start making progress. Make a communication book, start using strategies that can be a scaffold for your child as he is learning these new skills. So you can't just say, here's what we're going to do and here's what he's going to do. We have to teach the process of communicating the way we want him to. We are the stopgap between what he's able to do and what we want him to do. So we have to provide extra support in that median area. I'm going to put some links right over here that talk about various different issues that you might be deciding to work on. For example, I have a video on how to help your child engage with you on a social level if your child is not very easy to engage. I have a video on how to use a communication book with your child. And so I'm going to put those links over to the left-hand side of the screen. So if one of those is your one thing that you chose, then click on that video, watch it a bunch of times, figure out which area or where in this process do I need to focus with my child. Am I on step 1? Am I on step 2? And what is my next step for helping my child learn this skill more effectively? Talk about those strategies with your family and make sure that everyone is in agreement that that's a good strategy and that will be a good plan for your family. Though I have to say that sometimes only dad is on board with the new strategy, and sometimes only mom is on board with the new strategy. You may think that just one person can't make a difference in the child's overall behavior or development, and that's not true. One person can make a difference. It might not be as quick, and it might not be quite as easy because with you, your child needs to request stuff using the communication book, and maybe with mom, he doesn't. And so, it's not as well supported in both environments. However, that doesn't mean that your child isn't learning. So don't be discouraged. If you believe that this is the right thing to do and you start seeing progress, a lot of times other people catch on and decide, oh, maybe all that work is well worth it because we're seeing this progress. So don't give up. And even if you're the only one, it's still worth your time. Step number 4, identify what success would be for your child or your student on this particular issue. For example, with the above child who's nonverbal, success might be that he starts to choose a picture of snack and hand it to a communication partner when he wants to eat. That's a huge step, and it decreases frustration, increases independence, and overall for your family or your classroom, that's a big deal. And you may decide, that's as far as I need to go on this step in this area. Once he gets to that point, we're going to move on and we're going to deal with my second biggest concern, which is peer interaction, because he doesn't have any friends, because he doesn't interact with his peers at all. And now that he can choose what he wants from a communication book, his frustration level has gone down quite a bit. Now we're going to keep working on communication, but I'm going to start really hammering on peer interaction. And that's when you re-educate yourself again, you come up with a new action plan, and you start working the steps with that new one thing. So you still have communication as an important thing in your child's life, but you replace communication with social interaction as the one thing that you're really focused on. And number 5, begin implementing the plan. Don't be discouraged if it takes a long time for you to see the kind of progress that you want to see, the kind of success that you identified in step number 4. Your plan isn't broken just because you see slow progress. A lot of times our kids with delays, especially language learning delays or different kinds of diagnoses, the information goes in, but it gets processed a lot slower. And so it's kind of as if there's a 2-lane highway with 4 lanes worth of traffic. And so everything has to kind of funnel down, and it just takes a lot longer to get through that freeway area than we think it should or than we would prefer it to. And we have to keep driving on that freeway until we get to our destination, because if we don't, then we don't ever get there. I do have to say there is a step 6, and step 6 is assess and adjust. So if you honestly believe at some point that you have chosen the wrong action plan, if you believe it's not working for your particular child, or it's not working for your family, or you really believe that by this point, if it were an effective plan, you would have seen some progress, check again with the professionals in your life. But if you really believe it's not the right plan, reassess. Go back to step 1 and start educating yourself again on the same issue and say, okay, we chose this strategy the first time. I'm not sure that it was the best one. Let me see if there are other options, if there are ways I can tweak the strategy. But I have to warn you, don't do this too quickly, because like I said with the traffic jam, these processes are not quick. And sometimes they are. It depends on your child and the particular receptivity of that child in that moment. But a lot of times it's a slow progress, and we can't keep jumping from goal to goal just because we're not seeing quick progress. That actually damages the child and your family, because you get used to, because you can't get in a routine. You don't get the rhythm of helping your child and supporting your child. And those things are the right thing to do. Even if you never saw progress, it's the right thing to do to help your child communicate more effectively by offering visual alternatives to verbal language if he can't produce verbal language. That's just the right thing to do. It just makes sense. So even if you didn't see quick progress, it's still the right thing to do. This is a never-ending process of continual fine-tuning, of looking at where you've come and saying, okay, we made progress here, we still have something to tune up over here. We're never completely finished. We are always trying to provide the best support we can so that this child can become the best version of himself that he can. And it is a long haul, but it's completely worth it when you see your child becoming more independent, more satisfied, a more full participant in life and in the social places and engagements that you want him to be part of. I hope that this little talk was helpful for you today as you think through what your one thing might be with your child and your family. If you have questions, you know where to reach me. You can subscribe to this channel by clicking on the logo up there in the upper right-hand corner. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.